Hello and welcome. This is Dawn and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we're going to be creating note cards. Now this is a great technique for creating multiple cards, which happen to be great for note card sets, and that is using the vignette. Okay, so in design, when you create a vignette, you take multiple objects, you group them together to create a focal point. And here today we're going to be using the Garden Gate stamp set. This is perfect for this. We have all of these little images that we can group together to create little focal points. And we could use this to create a large scene. But sometimes that can be intimidating. So today we're just going to focus on the little small vignettes. So first, I'm going to stamp out all of these images that I think I'm going to use. I'm going to stamp out way more than I think I need, and we're going to go old school and just use an acrylic block. I'm using Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink to do my stamping because I'm going to be doing Copic coloring. Now you'll see that I'm going to stamp multiples. This is great for using up your scrap paper. So any of those small scrap pieces that you have, pull those out and then just start stamping. Stamp more than you think you'll need. You will have some messed up stamps. Not messed up stamps, messed up stamped images. Because we're using the acrylic block, right? We can't double stamp. And sometimes we push too hard on one side or we don't get a complete inking, whatever. Just stamp out a whole bunch on those scrap sheets. When you have incomplete stamping, like you see here, I have one of those that stamped incomplete. I can still use that. This set has a bunch of little small flower clusters that I could layer on top of that to create dimension if I wanted, so it's not a waste. I also get an incomplete stamp on this fence. That's okay because I'm going to cover the base of the fence when I use it anyway. So I'll be putting flowers in front of it, so no big deal. So like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. Now these are small images. A lot of them, some of them are very tiny. So we can get away with very simple coloring on these. I'm going to be using no more than 3 colors on these images. And I'm not going to fuss around with blending. Some of those flowers are so small that blending it would be difficult and really not necessary. It's not going to show up in the end result. So I'm going to show you how we're going to add some dimension to these without having to worry about blending. So I've started with the W2 for my rabbits, and I'm just adding in the shadow. So here, just wherever obviously his little booty is rounded, so where we want to create a little bit of shadow to create a little rounded effect. Anywhere where the legs meet the body, the tummy of the one bunny is between the legs, just add a little bit of my W2 there. Right there where the head and the neck meet, going up into the ears, very simple. Then I'm going to take the W0, and this is optional. You could leave this part out. I'm just going to quickly blend up. This is the only image that I really do any blending on. But again, you could skip this part and it looks fine. But I'm just going to take that W0 and just kind of smooth out those lines. That's going to give me that little bit of rounded effect on any of the areas that are rounded. The chest, the booty, the legs, the head. And that is really it for the rabbit. I will come in and put some pink in his ears a little bit later. But now let's move on to those little tiny flowers. So these are little. They're like the size of the tip of the marker. So these are so quick and easy to color. A lot of people will look at these tiny images and think that they'd be difficult to color, but don't be scared. So I'm going to use RV14 and RV10 to color this first little cluster. I'm going to start with the RV10 and I'm going to fill in the whole petal. So really, like I said, these little things are about the size of the tip of that marker. So you can see I am just dotting over each of the petals. That's it. Then I'm going to come in with that RV14 and I'm just going to add a smaller dot where the petals meet the center. That's it. I'm going to make sure I leave some of that RV10 exposed. Then I'm going to come in with my green and we're going to color in the leaves. And for that, I'm using YG13. And again, just pretty much dotting in those leaves. Now, optionally, if you want to add one color darker on those leaves and you have good control, just use the very tip of your marker. I'm going to come in with YG17 and add the smallest, tiniest little dot where the leaves meet the flowers. Again, that's it. Okay, so now we're going to do the carrots, and for that I'm going to use YR02 and YR16. Now if you want to make things go even faster, go ahead and color all of your like objects at once. So here I'm going to go ahead and fill in all of my carrot base with the YR02, and then when that's done, I'm going to come in and put that darker YR16 along one edge of each of the carrots. And I actually decide after I'm done, I'm looking at it and I'm like, not quite enough contrast, because I have a really good amount of contrast in the flowers and I just want to up that a little bit. So I will come in and add a darker orange here. So here's where I'm kind of evaluating it and I decide, yeah, that's going to dry back just a little bit. It's going to be lighter. So I believe I pull out the YR18, I think. No, I pull out the YR07. And then I'm going to go over what I just did. And you can see here that that really ups that contrast and adds more dimension. Okay, for the greens of the carrots, we're going to use YG11, and I just filled in all of the base of those little green areas. I don't know what those would be called, the carrot tops. They're good though. Carrot tops are delicious in a salad. If you grow your own carrots, you can actually eat the greens. So I will add those in sometimes after I pull the carrots. But now I'm just going to come in with that YG17 and I'm going to add a little bit of just contrast. Again, just a few little squiggles and dots. Not completely filling in everything again, just squiggling and dotting. And then I continued that same coloring method to color in a good portion of these images. I didn't worry about coloring in everything, but I know I have those extras if I need them. Now, another tip is to keep your color palette limited. Here you'll see I did groups of yellows, pinks, and reds, and then I added a little bit of purple. All of my flower clusters I did in either yellow, pink, or red, so that when I create my little vignettes, I know that my color palette will be cohesive and they should all look good together. So now we're just going to cut everything out using the Garden Gate dies. And I like to do it this way because I like to have a pile of elements to play with. I don't have to worry about masking or stamping or picking out my elements to stamp them exactly the way I want them. I can just dig in my pile and put together little arrangements. This is so much easier and quicker for mass production, especially if you like to mass produce but you don't like to mass produce the exact same design, which is where I fall. I don't mind mass production. I just don't want to create the exact same card 10 times. I'll use the same layout, the same elements, but I like to be able to switch it up. So having the pile of die cuts is perfect for me. Now, if you do not have a die cutting machine or you just don't like dies, you could always achieve the same thing with masking. You're just going to have to plan out your design ahead of time. And you could do that on a scratch piece of computer paper or something like that, so you're not wasting your cardstock. And so now comes the fun part. We get to build our little vignettes. I like to start small. I can always add on to it, but I like to usually start with like 3 elements. And I like to use a large, medium, and small element. And if you have something that's vertical and horizontal, those are always going to look great together. So here you've got your 3, and that could be an adorable little cluster, a little vignette of objects. Now you can start to add to it if you would like. So I'm going to play around with a couple of things, and here you can see we're having this pile of goodies to just kind of dig through and try different things comes into play. So I'll just start building upon my base now. So here I've got those 3 that I started with, added a little floral cluster in front of the bunny, tucked in behind it. And now I can say, okay, do I like it like this or do I want to add some more to it? And again, I can just hold the things around it, lay them down, see what I think, change things out. Maybe I like this better. Yeah, and that's actually super cute, right? Where it's nice and well balanced. We've got some height on the left and the right. Let's try something different. Let's start with this salvia. This one it's pretty tall, so that's a good one. Then we take our little bunny and maybe we want to pair it with now something that is smaller, shorter in height. So we've got 2 of the tall. We've got a tall, a medium, and then a very short. But we need to add some more height to that side. It feels a little off balanced. What if we push those two tall things closer together? Doesn't look too bad. We could work with that. It's feeling a little squarish. So let's add some movement to this. Okay, adding a little something there to that corner. Now we don't feel like we just made a box. We made it break out of the box. But what if we slide a fence behind that? Look, perfect. That is super cute, right? That could totally work. We've got our yellow on the left, our yellow on the right, and then we've got our red and our purple. It's got good balance. Here it looks off balance when I move them both to the same side, but this, I'm like, okay, what if I take this one out and move it down just a hair and then put in our red flowers at an angle to create even more movement so we don't have just a flat bottom. And I go back and forth, I'm moving, I'm talking through this just so you can know my thought process here. So this feels okay, but it feels a little disjointed, right? I've got that gap between the flowers and the bunny, which is fine in real life, that could totally happen. But it just doesn't feel quite right. Now we're getting somewhere, right? We're using that angle, and then you could put a sentiment right there, and that's going to create a nice little focal point. So don't forget about your sentiment. You want to think about where that's going to go as well. But again, keep it simple to start. Here we've got 3 little elements. That could work. That could be super cute. But if we switched it to a little bit bigger, that's even better. Flank it on the other side, and now it's perfect. Like that would be a perfect little vignette. And we're actually going to use this one in the first card, but I'm going to make a few changes to it. But first we need to create something to ground or group those elements together so they're not just floating. And for that, we're going to do a little bit of ink blending in the background. I'm using some Distress Oxide in Broken China. This is one of my favorite colors, and I always forget to use it. And then I use it, and I remember that it's one of my favorite colors. I love this one so much. So I'm just creating a little blended halo, a little blended circle in the upper 2/3 of the card. And again, that's just going to serve to unite and group those individual elements together so you view them as one. And I already showed you how I go about kind of playing around and placing arrangements. So I've already arranged this. We've got those 3 same elements as far as the 4 same elements that we started with, but I added 2 of those, I guess they would be hollyhock or gladiolas or something of that nature. I added those behind. So I created like a V shape at the top of the card, and then I extended those flowers out to the left and the right, and then I have my bunny right in the middle. So this creates a perfect little grouping, a little mini scene, if you will. And all of the elements bring your eye in toward the bunny, who is the focal point of the card. So now I'm going to use my press and seal to pick this up. And if I want to, I can mess around with where I want to place this vignette. I could place this down further and place my sentiment there in the upper right. I could move it to the lower and put my sentiment in the middle. But ultimately, I like it in the middle, and then I can place my sentiment right at the bottom there directly underneath. I always just kind of mess around because, again, I'm getting ideas for the next card because I plan on making several of these. So by going ahead and just kind of testing out these different positions and spots, I'm kind of putting them in my side file, right? I'm making a side file for the next card. And that's really going to come in handy since I want to do a card set, a note card set. I'm going to go ahead and stamp that sentiment and die cut it. You could stamp directly on your card base, but I kind of like having the freedom of switching it up at the last minute. So by having a die cut of the sentiment, I can choose to put it wherever I want last. Okay, I'm going to use the press and seal and the hinge method to do my adhering here. I'll use a combination of liquid adhesive and then 2 different heights of foam tape. Now, I've showed the hinge method with a press and seal before, and watching people adhere stuff down is kind of like watching paint dry, so I'm not going to make you suffer through that. So let's go ahead and take a look at all of the finished cards. Now, I ended up with 3 for this video, but I have lots of elements, so I can make more. I finished off all of the cards on a matching card base. So whatever color that I used to do my blending, I matched, and then I finished off with some jewels. All of these gems are from Honeybee. And I just love how these turned out. They're so stinking cute. They're like little mini scenes, little vignettes. And I cannot wait to make a couple more because I want to do some with, you know, a little bit of purple, a little bit of pink, and a little bit of yellow. I think that those will look amazing as a full card set that you could gift to somebody. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, don't forget to give this a like. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do that. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below and I will be checking and answering those. And I will have all of the links to the products used in the video description below. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.